This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Thank you. Okay, Parashas Re'eh. In this Shabbos is Rosh Chodesh Elul. And that brings us not to necessarily that dread, like, oh no, here comes those heavy days. It's not heavy at all. We're already constantly trying to, let's be honest, we're always, all human effort, some way or another, is somehow an effort to escape death, or the void, or nothing, the big nothing, meaninglessness, emptiness, going to nowhere, being nowhere. That's everything. Everything is about that. That's why we try to be healthy, and we try to keep fit and flexible, and we try to be better and good, to make every day count, to build things that are going to last after us, to have children, to make sure they're just like us, because then we will live after ourselves, to feel threatened by every person who's in any way a threat to our power, or our success, or our advancement, or our sense of permanence. Every single human effort, essentially, that is mindful, not mindless, is some sort of attempt to escape death. And so if anyway we're all in, that's where we are, why not just have a comfortable, healthy, and true approach to our inevitable, let's call it in Jewish terms, return to our source. And that's what we're talking about today. Or anyway dealing with this. So instead of being like, oh no, now it's really on my mind, okay, the Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Days of Judgment, it's anyway on our mind. So let's just get into a place where we know what to do with it. And we know how to handle it on a regular basis in a positive way. So that's really what Elul should be. So we're not going to talk about Elul just yet. Next Thursday, I'm not going to be here because we're going to be away, and I probably won't get back till Thursday later in the day. But Mitzvot the next Thursday. So let's start with, thank you, Rebecca. Thank you. I'll need one too, okay? Yeah. Okay. So let's start by reading the first 6 psukim in Parashas Re'eh. Alrighty? Don't forget, we're in Sefer Devarim. Moshe is speaking to Am Yisrael. He's setting them up for the future. He's talking to us. Thank you. So the psukim, you could read them already, kind of scan them yourself. First it says, this is the parsha that starts out with the bracha and the klala is going to be announced on Har Grizim and Har Evel. Alrighty? So Re'eh C, we've done a lot of talking about this in the past. I am Anochi Nosein Lefnecha Mayom. I'm presenting before you today 2 options. Bracha and klala. Okay, remember we always like to define words. Das, bracha, right? Tzaddik, Rasha, Tov, Ra. So what's bracha and klala? Right? Bracha in this case means when HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us all the things we need in this world, nothing to do with schar in the next world, which we're going to talk about. Hashem gives us all the things we need in this world so that we have a life that is suitable for a pursuit of Torah mitzvahs. Okay, or mitzvahs and Torah. We'll talk about that. So what that means is no war, no famine, no worries, health, prosperity, peace, and therefore, with all of that, we don't have to worry about all those other things that distract us and get in our way, and we can be busy with Torah and mitzvahs. That's called bracha. Klala, okay, is no good. It's that HaKadosh Baruch Hu lets kind of like nature take its course. And if we drift away from Hashem, we are then drifted away from Hashem. And then we're all alone. So like the shepherd and the sheep. The sheep can drift away from the shepherd, or thinks they're drifting away from the shepherd. And the shepherd's still there, but the sheep drifted away, and now the sheep has to fend for itself. Now, we're always in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's world, okay? And in the end, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is always fending for us. But in the sheep's mind, it has to fend for itself. And there's, wolves on the next hill, and there's a drought over there, and he doesn't know where to go. Thought he'd be better off, because maybe the shepherd was leading the sheep through like a difficult patch where it was like not enough water, not enough food for a while. So he said, I got to take care of this. I got to take care of myself. Let me go seek my fortune. But then the sheep has to fend for itself. It feels alone, and fear kicks in, etc. So that's klola. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you're not going to be in a situation where I'm going to ensure that these things don't find you. So Hashem gives us a choice to pick that, and it's all based on the mitzvahs. Okay, the bracha es bracha asher tishmu el mitzvahs Hashem Elokechem. The bracha is when you listen to the mitzvahs. By definition, it leads into bracha. Okay, and the klala asher lo tishmu el mitzvahs Hashem Elokechem. You don't. You drift off the way, you stray. Asher nochi mitzaveschem hayom, that I'm commanding you today, lelechas achrei Elokim acherim, you're going to go after other gods, asher lo yadatam, that you have no connection to. Then it says, v'haya, so this, we're always being warned not to let this happen, so, to make sure this doesn't happen, v'haya ki yiviach Hashem Elokech al aretz asher tabasham al rishto, when Hashem gives you the land, brings you to the land that you're going to inherit, v'nasat es habracha al har grizim, v'saklal al har evel, you're going to go up on these two mountains, and I'm going to announce them. Okay, they're on Ever HaYarden, acharei derech mavo hashemesh, the way the sun sets. Be'eretz HaKnani. Now here's where we're going to stop. You could keep reading a little bit more. Be'eretz HaKnani, in the land of Canaan. We are going to connect, okay, the bracha and klala, that mindset, trusting Hashem's mitzvahs or drifting off on some other path, which is better, makes more sense and easier. And the fact that these brachas and klalos are going to be announced in the land of Israel, but it is never ever referred to as Eretz Yisrael in Torah. Only the first time it's referred to is in Shmuel Aleph as Eretz Yisrael. In all of Torah, it's called Eretz Canaan, and there's a secret in that. There's a meaning in that. The bracha and the klala is going to be announced as soon as we get into Eretz Canaan. Okay, so we're going to focus on this concept of Eretz Canaan, the place where we have this option of bracha and klala. Now, we're normally thinking that Eretz Canaan is just like the ancient name for when the Canaanites lived there, but it's not true. They were called Canaanites because they lived in Canaan, but at the same time, the Torah insists on referring to this place as Eretz Canaan. So Canaan must have a deep meaning, and a meaning to us, and a meaning to them. And it doesn't lose its status as Eretz Canaan in the Torah. So what is the secret of that word? Okay, so first of all, just the first two references here, B, all right? There are two examples that you should be very familiar with of when Eretz Yisrael is referred to as Eretz Canaan. So first is in Bereshis by Avraham. V'nasati lecha u'lezarcha acharecha, I'm going to give you and your children after you, your seed after you. It's Eretz Mugurecha, the land you lived in, Eskol Eretz Canaan. La'achuzas olam, for an eternal portion. V'hayisi lahem le'elokim, and I will be for them a God. And this is, of course, always a balance to the extent that we accept Hashem and live with Hashem in our day-to-day life. To that extent, we have rights over Eretz Canaan. We have sovereignty. But we know this is a arrangement that if we don't live up to HaKadosh Baruch Hu's guidelines, we do not have any guarantee, chas v'chalila, that we have any ability to ensure our stay in Canaan. Okay, because what is Canaan? Canaan must represent these two possibilities. And then in Shemos, okay, this is to Moshe, Hashem says, I'm going to take them. Moshe is supposed to tell Bnei Israel. And Hashem said, I'm going to take you out, Me'eretz Mitzrayim, El Eretz HaKnani, to the land of the Knani, Achite, Amore, Aprizi, Achivi, Ebusi, El Eretz Zavas Chalav. It's always referred to, first and foremost, even if there's many other nations there, it's always called Eretz Canaan first. So what's Canaan? So, and by the way, all these ideas are from Rav Moshe in Mimamakim. Rav Moshe Zichron Levacha. Shapiro. Mimamakim is a sefer. He didn't write anything. I mentioned that many times. A Talmud wrote on, wrote a 5-volume set on the Chumashim, Bereishis, Shemos, Vayikra, Midbar, Devarim. So this is from Mimamakim. So Moshe points out that the word Canaan, all right, has a particular meaning as it is used in Torah, Navi, Mefarshim. Rashi brings it down. The Gemara tells us about it. The word Canaan means, who knows? It means a merchant or a trader. A Canaani is a merchant or a trader. That's right. We're going to get to Eshes Chayil. That's right. A trader or a merchant. So here in Hosea, which is always talking about the restoration of Am Yisrael to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, okay? Canaan, this merchant, biyado mozne mirma, he's got uneven, remember, not tzedek, but deceitful scales, all right, in order to take too much. But the word Canaan here in Hosea is referred to as somebody who's a merchant, except this is a dishonest merchant. Now the Gemara in Pesachim, which Rashi is going to bring down regarding Yehuda, when he goes and he sees Tamar and she's a Canaanite, he's like, what's this? What do you mean, a Canaanite? Abraham warned, and Yitzchak warns Yaakov and Esav, do not take a woman from the Canaanim. Remember that? So how could it be that Yehuda goes and marries a Canaanite? We'll see. But the Gemara in Pesachim, okay, so let's look at it. From where do we derive that a merchant is called a Canaani, as it is written? And Yehuda saw the daughter of a certain Canaani, and he took her. Okay? Now, what is the meaning of the word Canaani in this context? If you say it refers to an actual Canaanite, is it possible that Avram warned Yitzchak not to marry a Canaanite woman, and Yitzchak warned Yaakov to the same effect, and nonetheless Yehuda went and married a Canaanite woman? It's not possible. Rabbi Shimon Lakish says she was the daughter of a merchant, as it is written, and he quotes the pasuk we just quoted in Hosea. And if you wish, say instead that this meaning of the word can be understood from the following verse, which describes Tyre, which is a land in Yeshayahu, whose traders are princes. It brings this down. Whose merchants, Canaaneha, are honorable of the earth. Okay, so the merchants are always Canaanim, and here's the pasuk in Bereshis and the Rashi. Okay. The Rashi here, okay, this is Dalid, Dalid, the D should be a little bit higher right after the Rashi. You see Bereshis 38:2? Vayar Shem Yehuda bas ish Kanani. Okay, he saw the daughter of a Kanani man, Ushmo Shua, whose name was Shua, and he married her. Okay. Now, Rashi says Kanani means a merchant. Now, here's the Gemara in Shabbos. Okay. We're not going to go through this whole back and forth about intimacy with those. This is like about arayos who you're not allowed to marry. Can you kiss them if you can't marry them, etc. We'll ignore all that for now because it's a whole long discussion in the Gemara. But go to the very end in the Hebrew or towards the English. When it talks about a merchant, okay, it says Amar, and it says the following. In text of this in terms of this discussion, even any intimacy is prohibited with a woman with whom he is forbidden to engage in sexual relations due to the reason formulated as in an adage, okay? Go around and go around. Do not approach the vineyard, they say to the Nazarite. In Hebrew, Amar Nazira, Sachor, Lekarma lo tikrab. In other words, anyone you're not allowed to be intimate with, you shouldn't be touching, period. So, and the example they use is Sachor, go around and around, but don't touch. Circle it, but don't touch it. So this word Sachor, okay, is the definition of merchant. Okay, if you look I didn't bring the English here. When the Torah says, or the Mefarshim say that a Kanani is a merchant, it refers to a merchant as a Sachor. So we have a few things here. Kanani means merchant. A merchant is a Sachor. A Sachor we know is someone who goes, schora, you have something to sell. But Sachor means, as the Gemara points out from this quote, a Sachor means someone who goes around and around. Okay, that's the three steps. A Kanani is a merchant. A merchant is a Sachor, like the Samach of the first letter of the word, goes round, Socher. Socher goes round and around and around, right? Socher is around and around, but in this context, don't go around but don't touch it. But in the context of selling, what is this reference to going around? That's the question. How is a merchant someone who's going in circles? That's the question. So what is the answer? So the selling route is a circle, but more than that, the starting point is always home. Okay, the base. And then they go out, buy, sell, conduct their business, and then they come home. That's the work, what's the word I'm looking for? The work pattern, good word. The work pattern of a merchant is to leave the base, the root, the source, go out, and eventually come home. That's what a merchant does. So sachar represents going in a circle back to where you started from, going out, doing business, and coming back to where you started from. That's the concept of a merchant going in circles. Now, this is where it starts to get more philosophical and more, of course, Kabbalistic in terms of getting to the secrets of what's the Torah really trying to talk to us about. In Mishlei, the last parak in Mishlei, is the Eshes Chayil. It is not speaking about a regular random woman. What is an Isha in Mishlei? Don't forget, Mishlei means mashal. Everything in Mishlei is a mashal. It's silly to think that it means what it says. It's like simple meaning because the book is called Mishlei. Okay? So, what is the mashal for this woman that cannot be praised enough? What is the mashal? What is the female? We talked about this a lot. The female. What is the female in Machshava? What is the female, the concept of female in Jewish philosophy, in Kabbalistic thought? What is the female versus the male? The receiver. Now, every single person has in them male and female. Remember that? We talked about this a lot. Kochos in us already. The giver and the receiver. Okay? Am Yisrael and HaKadosh Baruch Hu have a relationship of giver-receiver, and it's not just that Hashem is the giver and we're the receiver. We've learned this often, that as history progresses and Am Yisrael integrate their identity with HaKadosh Baruch Hu more and more, we become the giver, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu becomes the receiver of what? What is Hashem receiving from us? The kavod. Not just, oh, you're so great. What does kavod mean? Our complete awareness that everything is designed so that we can discover it and be completely not just attached to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, like, okay, you're God, we're nothing, we're creations, take care of us, and we'll do whatever you say because we're scared. Not that kind of attachment, where our attachment to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is such that we discover that we are part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu's truths are in us already, and we represent them together. We take responsibility because we so identify with HaKadosh Baruch Hu's truth. We take responsibility for promoting it in the world. That's what we give. That's called kavod. So, the nekeva is the aspect of being able to receive completely, to not just to submit and defer. Okay, not just to say you're great, I'm helpless. I defer to you. You encompass me completely. You are the, and I have no self. That is not what we're talking about. The female is the one that is the ability to absorb, so to speak, and then do something with it. To have a self, even though we're allowing ourselves to be completely infused because of our mitzvahs and our learning and our knowledge. That's called closeness. We're infused with his sense of identification with the HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but we also have a self, an individuality that does something about it. Okay? This is the nekeva. We're infused with the male contribution, but then we build it into a real life. That's what the female does. We nurture it into an actual new creation, a child. Okay? It's not just being overwhelmed and submerged. It's being absorbing and receiving and then remaining and creating an individuality out of it, where we are a contributor to the great R that in the end will enlighten the whole world. That we're the contributors. Just like Moshe's Torah. Okay? Did you realize how odd it is that the Torah is called Torah's Moshe? Moshe didn't say one word that wasn't either dictated by Kadosh Baruch Hu or was just Hashem speaking through his throat, or him representing Hashem completely. So why in the world is it called Torah's Moshe? Because when we absorb it completely and then we express it, because we're so totally identified with it, we find our way of expressing it becomes ours. And we are considered a contributor to that great R. The Torah is in a sense attributed. The Torah, the greater R that is now available in the world, is attributed to us. It has our name on it. We did it. Okay, so in Mishlei, which is Mishalim, this nekeva, this woman who is doing this, is praised above all things. This is the female aspect of the person that is working perfectly as it's designed to work, as we just described. Okay, so she is described as a merchant. Haisa, haita, Ka'aniyot socher. She's like the ships that are socher. They go around. They leave the port. They do business. They pick up goods. They sell goods, and they come back. Okay? Mimerchak tavi lachma. From far away does she bring her bread. Now, we're going to see that the lechem, right? There's lechem. Something in the Torah is referred to as lechem. What is it? Lechem. Okay, that's very, very good, very good. Yeah, there's too many references to actually, that was a difficult question. We'll see that, first of all, there's, in terms of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, karbani lachmi. I didn't put this in the notes. The karbanos are like lechem, we'll talk about that, and then Torah is considered like the staff of life, right? Our lechem. We're going to get there. So here in Mishlei, the female capacity, okay, is called a socher, someone who is like a merchant going out, doing business, and coming back. That is the same idea as Canaan. That's what Canaan is about. What is this all talking about? Okay? So I just summed it up here in F. A merchant is a socher. A socher travels in circles. In other words, leaves home in order to engage in business and then returns to the original place. Traveling away from and then returning to the starting point. Now, in Eretz Yisrael, where we are going to get the bracha and klala right away as soon as we move in Canaan, what we're going to establish here is that in Eretz Yisrael, this force of coming full circle, of going round in circles, is most powerful. And if we're not in Eretz Yisrael, we can't access it as much. Okay. In fact, Shmuel, when David had to run away from Shaul, and he had to go to the land of the Plishtim or various places, he then accused those servants of Shaul who are instigating this constant hatred against David and not letting it rest. He said, "You're forcing me as if to go serve idols." Look in the Hebrew. He says, "Va'ata yishmana adonai hamelech." Listen, it's divrei avdo, the words of your servant. If it's HaKadosh Baruch Hu that kind of like stirred you up, incited you against me, that's acceptable. Let him be appeased. I'll offer him an offering. But if it is men, if it's your people, if your people around you that have incited you against me, okay, maybe they be cursed by Hashem. Why? Ki gershuni hayom, because they chased me away today. Mehistapeach benachlas Hashem, to participate in having a share in Hashem. Leimor, telling me, lech avod Elohim acherim, go serve other gods. And they never told him that. So Rashi says, go serve other gods, you have to run out of Eretz Yisrael because we're going to find you here and you're in danger. So whoever goes out of Eretz Yisrael to other lands during the time of the temple, which by the way wasn't built yet, there was still a Mishkan though, is considered as though he worshipped idols, okay? So David is referring to having to leave Eretz Yisrael as serving idols. Being in Eretz Yisrael is having a nachala, having a portion with God, and that is directly tied up with the concept of Canaan going round and the female avoda, which we have to do. Now, one more thing about females, okay, is that the future geula, which we started talking about in Shabbos Nachamu, okay, is referred to in female, terminology. So, if you look in Yeshayahu, Nachamu Ami, remember that Haftorah? Al Har Gavoa Alilach, remember the high mountain, Har Grizim Har Evel? Okay, it's also same idea. Al Har Gavoa, on a very high mountain, Alilach, that's totally female language. Alilach, Mevaseret Tzion, you great herald for Tzion, also female. Harimi Bekoach Kolech, that's female. Raise your voice in power. Mevaseret Yerushalayim, the one who's announcing to Yerushalayim. Harimi, raise your voice. Al Tirai, don't be afraid. Imri, say, La'are Yehuda, Hine Elokechem. It's all entirely female. So what's going on here? The Nekeva aspect of us is going to come to the fore in Yemos HaMashiach, the aspect of the female that is the socher, and that is going to reconnect us to Eretz Yisrael, to Canaan, which is referred to as a socher. What's the secret here? Okay? So, the idea here is what I really wrote in H, and what I started out by saying. Everything that humans do, okay, is really consciously or subconsciously, any mindful act, even going into a zone which is mindless, is the same thing. We are all trying to figure out how to escape death, the end, nothing, the great void, okay? this is why people make attempts to be strong and be vital and be healthy, as we talked about. All right? And save the planet, of course. That's very important. And our planet's in jeopardy. Crazy things are happening, the extreme weather and all of that. All kinds of, this. Okay, that's a whole nother. You can all learn about this, of course. Just Google a little bit. But in any case, we want, and then, of course, to be, and then also to make our life meaningful. So to leave a legacy. To leave something after us. This is all some type of attempt to outwit or outsmart, outmaneuver death. Why is that? Because of the idea of the Kanani, the Socher. Okay? Because everything starts at a point where we find ourselves in existence, and everything ends back where we're no longer here. It is just the inevitable truth, and any attempt to escape this is entirely futile. So, however, this causes people to either be possessed with trying to hold on to or be stronger than death, all right? Or to somehow negate death. And, for example, I read a while ago in the Kabbalah Center, so-called Kabbalah Center in New York, they're working on immortality. They're working on all kinds of methods to gain immortality. That's another thing. People freeze themselves for hundreds of years and who knows what. Or to be invisible to death. The death ignores me. I'm not relevant enough for God to even care. Somehow, but all these attempts are futile. So being that inevitably we come back full circle, it's best to come back and to start out and return knowing why we're even in this circle and what we're supposed to be accumulating here so that when we return in a state of not fear and not to nothingness, but to a much greater existence than we even had here. So now we're going into an idea that we're going to use the Tanya to explain. That's not Rav Moshe Shapiro. And that is, like Haya Ka'aniya Socher, she goes out like a ship, gathering goods, selling goods, coming and going, and she brings her bread, what's the bread? The bread is the schar, the parnasa, from far away. So you go and do business in order to bring your bread back to you, right? This is the mashal. You go out, you conduct business. What would the business be? Buying and selling, what would that business be? What would that mashal for that be? And then you bring back your bread. What we're talking about here is you go and you do your mitzvahs, coming and going with your mitzvahs, and that you earn your schar from far away. Okay? So the question here is for us, are we running in circles, trying to escape death, and then inevitably just meeting up with it anyway? Or are we returning to the source, having used our time well in this process? So mitzvahs ensure, doing the mitzvahs, going out and doing business, that not only are always connected to the source in this world, but they ensure maximum schar, bringing back of the bread, which is the capacity to endure and enjoy the ziv hashchina, that final radiant brilliance. We've spoken about it, like the drawing back of the curtain and getting to see the whole story, okay? Being able to be exposed to that and not be overwhelmed and obliterated by it. Because it's compared to the sun kind of like being taken out of its sheath and blazing in its full strength. You imagine the clarity of sight with that much light and the warmth, and imagine the overwhelming, capacity to understand everything. But if a person does not have the right tools or protection in place, they will not endure the experience. And not enduring it is called not schar, but onesh. It means in that blazing light, and we've spoken about it so much. The regret and the humiliation and the shock burns so much, a person can't endure it. That's called onesh. So going out and doing mitzvahs, okay, is not just a way of being connected to Hashem here and living a good life, okay, but it is what prepares us and acclimates us to be able to experience that ziv hashchina without being destroyed by it. So let me give you a mashal that doesn't really work, okay? Remember the Einstein mashal? It's not really the perfect mashal. It's just the baseline mashal. Einstein is resurrected for a day. Imagine, all right? And he's going to talk, and everyone can come hear him, and he's going to explain everything, the deepest secrets, in physics, and all the questions that the physicists have had for all these years that have never been answered. Let's just say they're going to just everything, all the questions, all the information will just be presented. So everybody buys tickets to come. You have 10 million people sitting in the audience. Einstein starts to speak, puts big complicated equations on the board, n over r times q to the third divided by this, who knows what. You know those equations that go on and on. After 5 minutes, 98% of the audience, I used to say is sleeping, but I don't say that anymore. Now I say texting or playing Candy Crush. Okay. And why? And 2% are like, their minds are exploding and they can't even believe. What is going on with those 98%? Einstein's there. It's all flowing. It means nothing to them. Not only just means nothing to them. They can't even understand a word he's saying. Why? Because they didn't study physics. They didn't spend time working, learning the subjects, working in the lab, actually involved with trying to figure out what this is all about. And therefore, they don't have any tools to absorb it all. Now, that's just a very benign mushal. Imagine if it's not Einstein, it's a Kadosh Baruch Hu, and all the secrets that everybody ever wondered about are being revealed, and all the truths, and not as the person just has no tools to absorb it, much more than that. There's a whole nother thing which we spoke about, which is Gehenna, which is the regret for not having the tools because they were readily available to everybody. Okay? So, now, I shouldn't say well, you're right, a lot of people don't have a chinuch. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu embedded in us a desire to want to know what we're supposed to be doing here that should lead us on a path. And even if a person doesn't get the right answers, they get the capacity to absorb this light if they go through their life as a mevakesh, seeking, searching. They might not get right answers because they might not even have the right people to talk to, but they're looking, they're seeking, they want to know. That is a great compliment to be called a mevakesh Hashem. Always seeking. We'll see that in David Hashem Ori. He mentions that. So the Tanya in chapter 5, which is a whole Kabbalistic description of the workings of the world from a Kabbalistic point of view. Tanya, of course, is very popular by Chabad, obviously, but it's a classic even beyond Chabad. It's not the only description of kind of like the Kabbalistic view of things, but it's one of the classics. So we're going to just look at the Tanya's approach to Torah and mitzvahs. Okay? So it's in chapter 5. He says like this. It is similarly written in Eitz Chaim, which is, of course, a famous Kabbalistic sefer, that mitzvahs are the garments of the soul in paradise. In paradise, Olam Haba, right? The souls enjoy the radiance of the divine presence. In order that the soul, which is a finite being, this is, right, we always say that every day, Elokai neshama shenasata bi, Tahorahi, Atabras, you created it. It's a creation. It's actually creation. So in order that the soul, a finite being, and remember what we said, the soul is not your body, not your emotions, not your intellect. It's the part of you that drives you to find out more about what life is all about. That's the questions. Why are you here? Why are you not satisfied? What are you part of? What's all that? That's the neshama. So, in order that the soul, a finite being, be capable of bearing the infinite radiance, it must be shielded by spiritual garments. The mitzvos it performed during its life on earth provide the soul with these garments. For as explained above, performing mitzvahs envelop the soul in divine light as a garment envelops the body. Okay, so let's stop here. What does it mean it's a garment? In other words, it is going to protect the neshama when it gets this great revelation. Again, we don't want to be completely overwhelmed and burned out, so to speak, in this light of truth and clarity that we're not prepared for. So mitzvahs, okay, when a person does a mitzvah, and it's very interesting here again about the female. When a person does a mitzvah, okay, such as, name a mitzvah. Give tzedakah. Going to a bris milah at 7 o'clock in the morning. Okay. Let's do the bracha we did last week. A person benches berchas hamazon, which is a deraisa. Okay, berchas hamazon. That bracha is a deraisa. So a person is doing something. Now what happens when a person is doing that? They are becoming aware, he says engulfed, like being clothed in the mitzvah. They're becoming aware that everything around them, and others that the environment they're in is infused with this truth that the mitzvah is helping them be aware of. Okay. Interestingly enough, women do not have, as far as I can remember, any mitzvahs that are objects that we do a mitzvah on an object, like a lulav or an esrog or a tefillin or a tzitzis. Lighting candles, first of all, challah is you make a bracha on taking away the isa. Lahafresh challah min ha'isa. So, lighting candles, by the way, I hate to burst everybody's bubble, but challah is not a woman's mitzvah. Everybody who bakes bread has to take challah. And on Shabbos, every single house needs neiros. If there's no woman, a man does it. Now, we generally do these mitzvahs, but they're actually not women's mitzvahs. Oh, that's a good one. Mikvah. That's one. That's a good one. And that's a great example of being completely surrounded or enclosed. That's a very good one. Thank you. I don't know why I didn't think of that. Okay, that is a good example of being enclosed in a mitzvah. Okay, kind of like the sukkah. All right, and and you're part of it. Now, doing these things on a regular basis, okay, consistently through our lives brings us to a place of constant awareness of what we're really part of. So that when we start to see it in the next world, it doesn't shock us because we're always in a state of awareness about it. And the mitzvahs keep us in that state of awareness in a million different ways. Every time we do something ben adam l'chaveru, because we're not here alone, ben adam l'makom, even chukim that we don't understand, like with animals we don't eat. There's greater truths out there that we will understand one day, that we respect and we take seriously. And we're always like conditioned to be aware so that when that day comes, we're not overwhelmed. So the mitzvahs they're going to protect the neshama. Because when that curtain is drawn back, so to speak, okay, and the ziv hashchina, the radiance or the sun's sheath, so to speak, of that R is removed, and we see everything, then number one, we have to not be, vaporized or burned by it. But more than that, we have to be able to enjoy it and be able to see what's being revealed, and be able to, using our capacity to understand, start to really slowly begin to see a bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger picture of what everything's about. We have to be able to actually interact with it and work with it. We have to be able to eat it, so to speak. Not just survive the moment, the experience, but actually gain and integrate it. That's already the Torah. So the mitzvahs get us ready to prepare to experience that without going into that other state, which is called onesh, okay, or Gehenna. Then once we can endure it, now there's the next phase, which is the Torah phase of understanding, and that builds slowly. Our understanding grows and grows and grows as we begin to see more and more pieces fitting together and seeing all the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu ran the world, and everything was part of a great yichud, a great oneness, which is why we say when people are already in the olam ha'emes, their neshama should have an aliyah, means they should see more and more and more. And the more we see, that we should always never say, oh no, now with that, shrink away. We should be able to expand, and our das, which we know is the integrated knowledge, just expands and expands and expands and never stops expanding in the olam ha'emes. So the mitzvahs protect us, and the Torah that we've learned sets us up to absorb more and more and more. So he says here, this is why we go out to do mitzvahs. We're going out not just because they're a good way to live now, they're preparing us for the return, the full circle coming, we come back full circle. That's why we go out and do mitzvahs. And then we bring our bread from far away. So the bread that we're talking about, then Tanya explains, is the Torah. The Torah that we learned here, which then allows us to, in the physics example, understand and everything more that's being revealed to us. Understand and appreciate it and rejoice with it and enjoy it in a way we can't possibly even imagine here. This is why we're going out to do mitzvahs. So he says, continue reading the Tanya. So that's the mitzvahs. Torah, on the other hand, is the food, he hamazon, and he refers it to bread, really, of the souls in paradise, which had engaged in Torah study for its own sake during their life on this earth. It is similarly written in the Zohar. Okay, the meaning of Torah study for its own sake is study with the intent of binding one's soul to Hashem by comprehending the Torah. Each man according to the capacity of his intellect. Remember what we said last week. The Torah we learned here Everything we learn here, okay, is lishma. Lishma is so that it's for its own sake, to be bound up with this das, this integrated knowledge, so that in the future, now, and of course we don't only get a drop here, in the future, that it's also something that is ours. Remember Moshe said to Kadosh Baruch Hu when he went for the second luchos, we did this last week, teach me your ways, ve'eda'acha, so I will know you, leman emtzachein beinecha, so that I will find favor in your eyes. What Hashem wants most, which finds favor in Hashem's eyes, is that we should know Him. So knowing comes through mitzvahs, and the mitzvah of learning Torah is the greatest of all the mitzvahs because it's a mitzvah, so it encloses us, the Tanya says, in this totality of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which we kind of defer ourselves to. But being that it's Torah, here comes the nekeva aspect. We're mekable Torah, that's the nekeva. It enters into us also, so, and it is absorbed and integrated in us so that it's us. We identify with it, and yet we still have an individual identity. Don't forget, if without the mitzvahs, think about it this way. When that radiant light would appear, we would not have the capacity, remember the mitzvahs, to survive the experience and endure it, and then absorb even more Torah.
You mean in Gan Eden?
In Gan Eden. What that means is, without mitzvahs, what would happen? We'd be vaporized. We wouldn't be vaporized. We'd be burned up in it, which means we would cease to have any separate identity into everything in the Ziv HaShechina, in this radiance of this light. We would have no individual identity. That's a person who doesn't do mitzvahs. But the person who does mitzvahs, Tanya's telling us, okay, there's a Kabbalistic idea, actually retains an individuality. Because the mitzvahs protect them from being burned up completely. They still retain their individuality. And then, as themselves, the doer of mitzvahs, the learner of Torah, they absorb even more and more and more and more and more. And they exist in a world, so to speak, of like as an extension of their individuality here. They're part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu is also part of them. It's a Kabbalistic kind of construct you have to start to wrap your mind around. But it means that a person has their identity as a part of the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but a source of that light too, even in the next world. They still retain a certain identity. So what is Canaan? And what are the Canaanim who lost their right to be in Canaan? We all know we're going back to the beginning. As we said, for those who don't understand that any escape from this is futile, okay? They are living a life of running to nowhere. Okay? And trying desperately to escape this eventuality, and of course to lose the fight. But for those who understand what we're going back to, who understand what our time here is meant for, go out there as a merchant. That's Canaan. That's what Eretz Yisrael helps us do. We are not in Eretz Yisrael. It's a big tragedy. That's the truth. It's a big tragedy every single day that we're not in Eretz Yisrael. Because like David HaMelech said, this being out of Eretz Yisrael is like disconnection. It's like you might as well, like as if you're worshiping idols when there's a temple. Okay, Baruch Hashem, no, there's no temple right now. So maybe we're not technically worshiping idols. But the point is, if we're in Eretz Yisrael properly, the way it should be, the understanding, what Eretz Yisrael does for us is it helps us live a life where everything we do, all our travels, coming and going, okay, like Rambam said, we learned last week, coming and going, everything we're involved in, is not making money so that we're comfortable here, but it is doing business of Torah and mitzvahs constantly to make our parnasa, which is our real parnasa, what we're really going to live off in the Olam HaEmes, and to the extent that a person is busy with that here, they're ensuring for themselves the capacity, not just a better life in this world, but, and I don't mean we would avoid all tsaros, but even if we have tsaros, there's meaning to it. We know what to do with it, and we're supported by friends with it, and great, and positive things happen often because of it. Even tsaros are handled in an entirely different way. But we're ensuring the lechem of the future that we'll be able to eat it, so to speak. And when we eat bread, what does it do after we eat it? It supplies nutrients to our body, even when we're, in a way that we're not even consciously aware of. When we absorb this Torah here and Torah of the future, okay, it creates in us, health and some sort of spiritual strength and existence that is eternal. This ability, okay, let's just end with this idea. This ability to absorb, to be a makabel, is the female quality in every person, men and women. As we get closer to the end of days, the Yemos HaMashiach, well, it looks like we're getting there, okay? This is, as we saw in Yeshayahu, in Nachamu Ami, the force in play is going to be the female force. You see it in the world around you in the craziest ways. You see it in positive ways, in negative ways. You see the female force is asserting itself. The female force in Torah means that we are shifting to a consciousness, and Kabbalah is very much, teaching this. And that's why Rav Moshe Shapiro's Torah was so popular and so transformative, because he's speaking in this type of terminology, which is very in tune with what's happening today. We are in a mindset where Torah and mitzvahs are not something this has to be the case, but if you try to present this to most of the youth, for large portions of the youth, it doesn't reach them. You have to be obedient, because Hashem is the melech, and you are the eved, and Hashem is everything, and if Hashem can, schar bracha v'klala, otherwise Hashem will be angry at you, and punishments will happen, and don't start up with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that approach, okay? That is, for large groups of people, not working to reach them. In fact, the melech eved, the king, servant, like mashal, you don't even hear it so much anymore, because we've seen a shift. What has to happen today, and this is a positive thing in many ways, the mitzvahs have to directly make me feel connected to Hashem. The Torah I'm learning has to be relevant and make me happier and stronger and more centered and more connected to Hashem, and make my life more coherent and more calm, and give me an anchor to hold on to, so I'm not like cast around in this crazy, insane, chaotic storm that's taking over the world in many ways. Torah has to be something integrated into me that I'm part of, that it's mine, and I have a mission, which is to really ultimately be a source of the kavod of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the way Torah is to be taught. That's the female aspect. It has to be me. I'm a part of it. I've taken it into myself, so it's natural to me. This is what I want to do. This is what's right for me. That's the female. And that's going to be the energy of the end of days. Yes?
So if mitzvahs are the protection, and that allows us to assimilate when we get, to Gan Eden, or, where does shgaga come in?
By accident?
It's
negligence.
Right.
The reason that we get the reason that an avera b'shgaga, it's a very good point, Chavi. And shgaga doesn't mean an accident. Shgaga means negligence. An accident is something called ones. It's an accident. You just walked down the street and you stepped on an ant on Shabbos. Okay, that's not anything. That's nothing. Everything takes, is a very good point. Okay, 2 more minutes. Everything takes machshava. Mindful, we said this in the beginning, mindfulness that this mitzvah somehow is enveloping me. What does that mean? It's teaching me every day, all day, in many, many ways. I'm always being taught lessons of that I'm part of something much greater, and I need to respect it, and the mitzvahs, whether we understand them or not, are there to help us constantly be in touch with it and respect it. By the way, there are mitzvahs we don't understand. Like, how does this make me a better person? Well, I don't know how gravity makes me a better person, but I know that it's real, and I should respect it, okay? But I'm saying, I don't believe in gravity because it doesn't affect me personally. It doesn't make me feel like I'm doing anything. So I'm just going to walk off the end of the Empire State Building, because gravity doesn't mean anything to me. I don't relate to, okay? So these are chukim. They're just rules that we don't understand yet that are critical for protecting us eventually and getting us into a mindset of this awareness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that will eventually envelop us. So a shgaga is when a person does something without any mindfulness, mindlessly. It's negligence. It's not an accident. It's negligence. I should have been mindful and I wasn't. That's a shgaga. Okay? Like, I should have not when a person leans back and the light switch goes on, even though if a person has done that once or twice, they should put a box on the light switch. But a person walks in the room and they're just like, and they just forget it's Shabbos and they turn on the light. That's negligence. Okay? Now, Or a person knows their brakes are faulty, and they just I'll fix them tomorrow. I know they're pretty bad. And then, chas v'sholom, they get into an accident and they harm someone. That's negligence. It's not an accident. So that's why we're guilty. We're chayiv on negligence, because we're meant to be mindful all the time. That's what the mitzvahs are supposed to keep us doing. Yeah.
I feel like I'm missing something that I don't know if anybody else is missing it, but when it says here that we should not marry the Canaanite, that Abraham warned him, so it's very negative.
Yes.
So this is like
because the Canaanim of Eretz Yisrael were the opposite of what we're saying. Eretz Yisrael is a place, okay, where you feel desperately, this is a good point, I'm sorry I didn't elaborate on it, you feel stronger, like everything has to be meaningful, everything is there's a road we're on, and it's leading to a destination, and that destination is exactly, sof maaseh b'machshava tchila, the final result was the original intention. In Eretz Yisrael, you know that. You're not just like going about your day-to-day life and whatever and see what happens. Everything is like hyper-charged on a mission to get to a place where we're aware of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that's why there's such a desperate attempt to like finally reclaim the Temple Mount and go up there already, and people are, breaking out sort of really some basic boundaries that have been in place for all millennia, and like trying to, going up there already. They can't, the Eretz Yisrael drives you. The Canaanim in Eretz Yisrael, okay? If you learn anything about ancient paganistic cultures, and especially the Canaanim, okay? What's interesting is, what was their lifestyle about? The ancient paganistic lifestyle, if you read about it, it's actually cool. They didn't have what is called linear time. They had what's called circular time, or cyclical time. In other words, they didn't even have a concept of going forward to a destination, which, okay, we're now talking about a circle. It is forward, but it's back to the beginning. Okay, but you're going towards a destination. They didn't have such a concept. They had an idea that you just go through the year repetitively, going through the seasons and going through the rituals to keep yourself alive for another year. So in the spring, you have fertility orgies for the fertility god because it's fertility time, and then in the harvest you have your rituals for the gods for the harvest. You just keep going round and round and round and round and round, and you never go anywhere. You're just surviving, staying one step ahead of the game, and keeping the gods happy. That's called cyclical time. That's how pagans operated. They don't even have calendars. They're pagans. And the Canaani that's the other side of not having a destination. Not knowing we are going around in a circle, but not that kind of circle. Not that spiral like Rav Dessler. Not that kind of circle where we're going just one step ahead of the game and repetitively. Now, we get into patterns. Think about it. Repetitive thinking. Right? When people find themselves repeatedly thinking going in loops in their mind. OCD is also, people that suffer from that, loops and loops and loops, you never break through. It's a problem. We are going in a circle. This is natural, but it's a certain type of circle. We start as a neshama with potential. We gather mitzvahs. We adapt ourselves, or we train ourselves to learn Torah. And then when we come back to where we started, both historically and each one individually, we are in a whole different situation to now absorb safely the Ziv HaShechina. So we got to make sure what type of circle we're in. Lynn.
I was a little confused because you mentioned that neshama/soul is finite.
Yeah.
I always thought that was infinite.
It's okay. Neshama is a creation by Hashem, as we mentioned. Ata barasa, ata yitzarta, nafachta. It's a creation by Kadosh Baruch Hu. But it could exist eternally. In other words, we're all trying to escape death. The part of us that gives us the access to escape death is the neshama. The neshama gives us the capacity to be attached to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What that means is, we just said, mitzvahs absorb us, and then Torah we absorb. We're fully attached to the eternity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The neshama is the part of us, okay, that Hashem created, that gives us connection to eternity. Everybody wants to avoid death. The only route is through the neshama. Okay? It's something Hashem gave to us that connects us to HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
But it has the ability to be infinite if you develop it. Is that correct?
I'm pretty sure, but there's something I want to look into for that. But that seems to be what it's saying. Yes, the neshama can live eternally, absorbing, and it is the part of us that is the only part of us that can transition into the future, which is really right here, right now, but the future for us, hopefully, at the moment. and be the keli for which all of this happens. Yeah, that's very good. I just want to clarify that a little bit. A good point. Yeah. Because a neshama that can't endure any of it, a neshama that has never, was conditioned, will be consumed. Exactly, will be consumed in the light, something like that. Now, this is all very Kabbalistic, esoteric things, but the practical aspect of this is mitzvahs are not chas v'chalila burdens. They're not things that keep Hashem happy, random acts that keep God happy. They're not just haphazard behaviors that Jews do to be different and separate. They are what conditions us to exist forever. Okay? All right, everybody. Next week we're off. Have a wonderful and a good Rosh Chodesh Elul.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.